Hello, and hopefully going live on a few places, hopefully. We'll see how we get on. For dead languages, like probably, I guess, Aramaic and Old English and all those kinds of things. Well, the good news is that Teach Yourself have some good materials for those. And in fact, I saw on Twitter recently that they're bringing out some new ones soon. So, and I think Aramaic was mentioned actually. So yes, I would say have a look at those because they would be good for starting off. For Latin, there is a Teach Yourself Latin, but there are also a number of courses for Latin. Depends if you. I'm not going to remember the name now. Yeah, they speak through the whole course, which is really cool. On with some of those, so it's worth having a look at their electronics because they're like 99 pence, which is like what, $1 or something, or €1. It's just not very much money at all for an entire course. I know they had the Scottish Gaelic one on, and I've got that myself. So you look for Greek, and they have A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1. Well, they call it. I recommend. In terms of what I use for Greek, it's Flick, and I'm doing again. Even though I have kind of been through AB1 course, I didn't feel like I'd really. In terms, it's always good to not be afraid and not get too useful. I think it's useful doing it. Could you share some of your thoughts on learning Czech for somebody who doesn't speak a Slavic language, although I speak Spanish? Yeah, hi there. Hi everyone, by the way, joining on. Time to read all the names, but I will do my best to catch them as much as I can. So Czech, yeah, I went to study Czech at the university in Prague, looking for books that work well with you. So some that I have are Czech, and I found that quite interesting just to read before I started with Czech. And then we used progressive Czech, which is communicative Czech, which was the book that they used at the university course for the beginning and intermediate classes. And then the advanced class, we used the university actually, which I've never seen for sale except for at the university or university bookshop in Prague. And that's Czechina pro Kochili. So that's like Czech for advanced students, and that was a course I did in university. And then I would say that actually Czechina pro život is a really good Czech for life. If you look up Czech for life, you should be able to find it as well. I think the English title does appear, so I would go for that. But take it slowly. It takes time. It takes time to remember the words because they're super different, especially all the consonants. So I have a question here. How do you ignore chores for studies? I myself out doing the other first jobs first. Yeah, ignoring chores is quite difficult. And yeah, I have to do that as well because that's kind of part of my, part of my life. I have to do. I live in a family. I live in an environment where I need to do chores. So I have to do certain things as well. Sometimes it does get difficult to manage because you start something and then you get taken away off to do something else, and then you come back and it's kind of a little bit bitty. So I do have that issue sometimes myself too. It's completely impossible. But the thing I'd say is if you set yourself very small tasks, if you know that that's going to be a problem, this is where setting sort of small goals is really important. Because if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, and you know that you can do that, then do that. Like I'll give you an example from my life. The other day, I've been setting myself a goal of watching this program on Scottish Gaelic, which is like a series of 18 episodes, and I wanted to watch one a day. before I started studying again. And and I started watching this one episode. It was the day before yesterday, I think it was, and honestly, I got interrupted like 5 or 6 Saturday, and I got interrupted so many times that in the end, it was just impossible. So I had to just decide that I would get to halfway through, pause the video, and I would go back to it in the evening, and I did. So it's kind of being a bit. You have to be a bit rigid, and then you have to see what's possible to leave off. Like, make a decision when you're studying. Okay, what will I feel really bad if I don't do it today? On tomorrow, if I don't do it, and that's the important. It can be extremely stressful when you're sort of working on language stuff and studying and working and doing housework, household chores as well. It's quite a lot to sort of take on board. And if you've got children, or you've got pets, or you've got people that depend on you, then it's prioritize. It's really important to have these sort of rules of thumb of what you're going to do and when. So absolutely, go for like your goals, and make you set goals that you can stick to. And if you have extra time to play with the languages, but definitely not to the detriment of your goals for the week or the month, because once you start missing your goals too much and you keep having to sort of order them or reassess them, it can get to a point where you say to yourself, well, I've not done any of it now, so I've failed, and I'm going to go. And that's not healthy for you, or just not just for your language studies, but people generally to sort of to feel that they need to give up. And the fact is that the worst person, the worst critic of ourselves is often our own inner voice. And I always talk about haters online and stuff. I think actually we're probably harder on ourselves. We're our worst hate when we talk. So I would say that it's super important. Say, make sure you're being kind to yourself, you're setting yourself decent goals, and you're sticking to the goals before you go off and start looking at other things. But yeah, it's super easy. You're completely right. This female mind, it's super easy to get distracted. It's just sort of there was one technique, or a few techniques out there that you can sort of use, and some of these people that have these channels, you know what I mean. We're sort of this is where we're quite different sometimes to our American cousins, in that the way we we're a bit more sort of matter of fact, and definitely more sort of self-loathing and all that kind of stuff. We've got a funny sense because of it, but the problem is that sometimes when people have some good ideas, we don't listen because it sounds too fluffy and too sort of rainbows and butterflies, as I say. But there are some good techniques in there, and I think it's really important to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and to listen to some of what people have to say, even if it doesn't fit in with who we are, or who we feel we are, or it feels a bit too different to our norm, right? So one of the things I heard was, if you go to do something, just stop. If you go to do something away, because it takes you the time to stop, think, and then decide, okay, actually I need to focus on this instead, or I need not to eat that cookie, or whatever it is you need to do. This is in the context of food, so which is why I use the cookie thing, not to eat the cookie. But it works with language as well. It works with anything, in fact. Do I really need to do that now, or should I just focus on what I'm doing? And then you just need a break from what I'm doing for a second to sort of re-energize, and maybe get a glass of water or something instead. I got a question here. Can we do, actually, what can we do about dying languages? Well, we can learn them, is what we can do. What I'm doing is learning 1,000 words of Manx over. It's not as ridiculous for me as say other languages, because if I don't remember all the words, it's not going to be the end of the world, but I will have seen them, and I will have gone through them, and I'll see how I get on. No pressure. This is the cute, cool thing, no pressure. Just do what you can do, and don't expect too much of yourself. The other thing that I've done is I signed up for this course on Kristang, which is a language, they call that a Creole language, from Singapore and Malaysia, and it's basically Portuguese and Malay mixed. A lot of Portuguese vocabulary with more Malay grammar. So I did that on Saturday morning for a couple of hours, and I'll do that once a week. And this is a and yeah, if you're interested in Zolo languages, she has prepared with. It's there are lots of things you can do for sort of endangered or different languages. I think getting into the community to joining. Any advice that I have for learning Italian, Leonardo? For learning Italian, it's one of the languages I studied at uni. So I studied at university, and so it's been a while since I started Italian. I think that it depends what you're coming from. If you're coming from a language background where you already speak a language similar to Italian, then I would say just any book and start learning it. You can probably, it's one of those languages where I don't like to sort of recommend university now. It's so long ago. And at university in Italy, I used this advanced Italian course that we used when we were at university in Verona. Intense. So I definitely wouldn't say learn Italian with that. But hola, de Portugal. Hola, tudo bem? Hi, Mifta from Indonesia. Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm well, thank you. Here's your work. Some internet and social media field. Could you please tell me why you don't choose to work for the United Nations? Why do I not work for the United Nations? Good question. I don't work for the United Nations because I've never applied to work there. At home when my daughter was young, so I wanted to be an online position, and working for an organization like the UN or a government institution was not an option because you can't really work from home doing a job like that. So that's mainly why. Are there any ways to improve your accent, particularly in, say, French? Yes. Shadowing and online tutor. You're not living in. Okay, if you're not living in the countries, then yeah, absolutely. Recording your voice, asking for feedback from your teacher, finding out where the noises are made, finding out where you're making them, and making a comparison between you and the native level speaker that you're talking to. And sort of keep making the sound and recording and improving and listening back. And if you really want to improve your accent, I think that's the most important thing to do. Okay, let's see what I've got here. Another question here. How can we learn new words? But I don't mean where can we, but okay, how do we do it? When we find a new word, what do we do? Yeah, so I find that you tend to learn new words knowing words that are to use. In Korean, I learned the word for fish, which was, just a second, sing song. Sing song is the word for a fish in Korean. And the way I remember it is I imagine a fish singing a song. It's singing a song, sing song. And then I know that if a fish looks in a mirror and the opposite, which would be song sang is the teacher. And the teacher is kind of, I imagine my teacher looking in the mirror at a fish and seeing a fish. So this is kind of how I remember that one. And then another word, the front part of the shin in English, and the ball of my foot, the heel, can be called. So I think of the ball of my foot and the shin. So I go from the shin to the ball, and I put my shoe on it. So I kind of have weird ways of remembering like that help when I'm sort of tackling something completely new and random for me. And it's amazing how if you make these stories in your head, it helps you recall the vocabulary. So like that's been a few hours now since that lesson, and I haven't really talked about it since then, and I'm just saying it now to you, and I still remember the words. So it seems to have worked. And this is the kind of thing that they do on the Michel Thomas course as well. They sort of give you these these ways of remembering the words, and it's important you create your own that are memorable to you. My next Korean video, when's it coming out? So I will make another one on Tuesday. And in that, I'm going to talk about it was like doing the Michel Thomas method and what it was like learning to write Korean with the script hacking, and also I'll probably talk about my next goals of where I am with Korean and what I'm doing and how I'm getting on. I'll give an update as well on where I'm up to with Korean. So I've been doing the obviously talk to me in Korean course, and that's worked really well. So yeah. I just want to tell you that you're a real source of inspiration. Thank you. Pozdrav iz Macedonia. So, Dios, I'm really interested in learning Icelandic because of the great geographical isolation the language has got in its development, and also try to read the sagas. What do you think about it? I think it's a very good idea. Hola a todos en español. Hola, hola. ¿Qué tal? ¿Todo bien? Try tackling Chinese or Japanese? Yes. So, Neil, I did 3 semesters at university in Sweden of Chinese. I did Mandarin at Dalarna University, and then I did a semester of Japanese as well. But my Japanese obviously is not going to be very good after 1 semester. Chinese got to I could. It was over a year and a half. It was nearly 2 years I did it in the end because I didn't quite finish in Chinese. And Japanese, it's kind of, yeah, I can get by as a tourist in Japan. I never say to people, oh yeah, I speak Japanese. It feels a bit. I have studied Japanese. I was more interested in just actually knowing how they used these different characters from Chinese in Japanese and how the alphabets worked. And then once I found out how they worked, I realized how crazy it was. It's a really interesting language, and people are super excited when you speak. Hello, Richard. Why did you move to Skopje, and how did you learn Macedonian? Simple answer to why I learned Macedonian. I got married to a Macedonian. So there we go. And so yeah, I've been speaking it as a home language now for 15 years maybe. Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, as a home language for 15 years, but then we were dating for like 2 years or so before that. So it's been, yeah, about I started learning it, yeah, quite a long time ago now. It's probably more time than that. I keep saying 15 years, and it's probably a little bit longer. I was wondering, what is your personal opinion about studying 2 languages at the same time? I know that the linguistic community is kind of divided on that. I think it can work. I studied more than 2 languages at university, and it worked fine. If you find that it's getting too much, then definitely leave one behind and then go back to it later. Remember, it divides up progress you make in 2 languages as opposed to one. If you're concentrating just on one, it's going to be work. Yeah, why not? Have you ever studied any of the Chinese dialects? No, not really. So I know how to say like hello in Cantonese and things, but I can recognize the numbers and a few things in Cantonese. Otherwise, the Chinese dialects, no, I haven't really studied them. Richard, are your thoughts on Assimil for Russian? I actually quite like the Assimil Russian course. It's quite a nice course. I don't know whether sometimes it's very difficult for me to decide as a beginner because I already speak Slavic languages. So sometimes I look at these courses and I'm like, oh yeah, that works really well for me. But is it because I speak Slavic languages already? And how do I think a newbie to the language would feel? Okay. What's life like in Macedonia? North Macedonia is a beautiful country with lovely people, and yeah, I like the country. Yeah, it's nice. I mean, good food. There's some really beautiful scenery. Very close to a lot of other neighboring countries. Nice to travel when it's not Corona time, and yeah, it's a nice little life. I think I enjoy it. I enjoy Macedonia. I enjoy it there. I enjoy Macedonian life. You're very welcome. is there somebody that I look up to? I look up to a lot of people. It would be difficult to name them all, but there are many different people that I look up to. I'm not a sort of person that gets starstruck, so I don't sort of have, I don't sort of feel shy or embarrassed to talk to anyone. I feel that for me, we're all human beings, so everybody's the same in that way. But I definitely do have people to look up to. In the language community, I would say you would respect and appreciation for, simply because she is just incredible how she does so many really, really cool things, and how much she knows about so many things. She's definitely one of my heroes. I think Lindy is a super person. I said that on the video when we did the interview, but I really do. She's really, really good at animating people, and she's genuinely a nice person. For me, people being nice is really important. But there are a number of people that I really respect, and like or feel motivated by. And as I say, it'd be difficult to name them all, but yeah, there are lots of people. I'm sorry, but I just thought, yeah, for me, you'd admire, because we've been friends for a long time too, and just the things she does, and she's always stayed super nice over the years. She's always been very supportive, very helpful, very kind, and for a long time we've been friends. So so she's probably my one of my really favorites in the language community. But there are many of them that I really, really like and respect. Okay, let me see. How do you go about learning languages like Slavic languages, which I have more information specified than English? Multiple words and slightly different meaning. Yeah, so a language like Macedonian is a really good example because it's my home language. I basically bought a book called Macedonian for Beginning and Intermediate Students by Christina Kramer from the University of Wisconsin. And I went through it. I just literally went through the entire course over the space of 3 months. I had a big motivation because my now wife was my motivation to learn it properly. I found a Macedonian speaker in London. I was living in London at the time, and I made sort of had lessons with her once a week to practice. But yeah, it was that's kind of how I did it, and it does really, it's how much time you put into learning and how regularly you do it. That's the key to learning a language well and sort of making progress. There's no other secret to it. Anybody selling a secret is there isn't. It's literally that. The thing I think that is good to do with other people, other learners, something somebody else does that's successful with language learning. But otherwise, I mean, it's literally, you just have to do it each day. And if you don't, you don't retain it, you start forgetting things, and it moves backwards. Lindy's lovely. Let me just see here. What's the most difficult thing with learning Greek? So Greek is, to speak Greek, this is what I said. There are some languages, right, where you start learning them at a basic level to advanced level. A lot of different words that are very, very different, and yeah, that's complicated with Greek. In the beginning, like how to say "I go by bus" or "I write by with a pen," or you know what I mean. It's easier to do that, but when you get to like an intermediate, advanced level in the Slavic languages, they get easier, I think. Clearly, and language sort of the etymologies easier than Greek. To start saying basic things just goes nuts, because the grammar actually gets a bit weird for an English speaker, or not possible to communicate in it. But when you can communicate in Albanian, know a lot of words. whereas in Albanian, the words then start coming a lot from Italian. So if you know a Latin language, it gets easier to understand, strangely. Como pronunciar? Sim, eu fiz isso. Isso é falar com a gente e saber como fazem os sonidos da língua. Então, para poder reproduzir os sonidos da língua. Então, isso é muito importante. Importante escutar também, viu? Sei o Macedonian aprender. Do you have you tried using SRS system like Anki? At the moment, Paul, I'm using Memrise for my Korean. So the Talk to Me in Korean course that I'm doing actually has an entire Memrise course attached. So I've been using that to go over the words and phrases from the course after I finish the lesson. So that's actually quite useful. I'll talk more about that in the video on Tuesday and about how I've been doing it. And also I'll write a little bit about it as well, because I think it's been pretty useful actually for use it normally very often, but like Anki or Memrise moments in my life where I've used them a little bit, and then I think context, whereas using it in conjunction with a course seems to work a lot better because I'm sort of going through a course that's not on the same platform, it's on a different platform, and it kind of makes sense. I've got a podcast to go with it, so there's a lot of context and a lot of explanation, which is great. Okay. Let's see. Привет, друзья. Как у вас дела? Хорошо. У меня дела хорошо, спасибо. Как тебе? Как у тебя? Все хорошо, все нормально. И это сейчас. Your top 3 online language learning tools. Online language learning tools. Wow. So Link, I think, is probably one of my top ones. I think that Link is a super site for learning languages and for practicing your languages, because you have it written, it's recorded with audio, and you can. I've really enjoyed doing the Michel Thomas recorded. It's not don't know if it's what you mean like an online learning tool, but it's a recording and you go through it. Pimsleur's mentioned, so I'm guessing it counts. Pimsleur's a similar thing, but it's I think about Pimsleur is it's a bit samey, but I used Pimsleur for Hungarian, and it worked pretty well. It gave me some confidence, actually getting me to sort of use it. ¿Cómo decides que el acento usar para aprender un idioma? Pues depende de la persona a mi alrededor. Así que con español, por ejemplo, aprendí en Francia, en Reino Unido y en España, pero vivía con hispanoparlantes y así que más como ellos, un poco hispanoparlante de Europa. Así que yo no decido. It's another language and found it fun. I find it fun when I get to speak it. I don't get to speak it very often, but yeah, I get to use it every now and again with people. When I go to events, usually I get to use it, but not that often. Okay, let me see. How important is it to learn to write in target language? So to learn to write in target language is pretty important, depending on what you use it for. So I mean, I write out all of my words. I write out what I'm doing all the time. It's good for practice, really, more than anything else. And so I'd say yes, it's good for just learning generally to write things out. I've been trying to actually just use my keyboard a lot more recently. I put a post out on Instagram talking about writing my Greek, because I find that what happens is on my phone I can write because I've got all the letters and the keyboard layout, and it's very easy to find all the language. So Some languages are just more complicated to learn the layout of the keyboard, but I have to do it just by remembering where the keys are. So in my head, I've probably got, I don't know how many keyboards in my head that I know where the keys are fairly well. Greek I'm not so bad with. Turkish is pretty good for me. Macedonian is fine, obviously. English, obviously. And then for French and for Spanish and most of the Latin languages, I actually don't change the keyboard from British English, because I can just hold the key down on the Mac and it will give me the option to add the diacritics. Too much about that. Okay, yeah. If you've tried Esperanto and you speak French, Italian, Spanish, and English, it's definitely a lot easier. Absolutely, absolutely. Oh wow, yeah. Writing in Japanese is easier with a keyboard. By hand, it's a nightmare. Absolutely. Writing like Chinese or Japanese with by hand is hard. Using the keyboard is a lot. For me, pinyin, for example, I don't have a problem writing in pinyin on my computer. Korean's not. I'm getting Sicilian dialect, maybe one day. Who knows? Let me see. How do you stay motivated, short and long term? I tend to project into the future and say, okay, well, what will I be happy doing and not doing, and that helps with my sort of motivation, really. As long as I feel happy with what I'm doing, then I'm fairly content. But yeah, it's not always a given that you're okay. Hey, how are you? By the way, is teach yourself better. Let me see. So I'll give you an example for Albanian. I don't like the colloquial course at all. I didn't find it very helpful. And then for Hungarian, Alex very helpful. And then for Hungarian, Alex Rawlings always said that he liked the colloquial course. He found that very useful. I use the colloquial course for Swedish because my university lecturer wrote it, and he used that as a book, and I found it really good because particularly because I was studying the language with him who wrote it, so it's really good. But it's not a huge difference. It depends on what you want to do yourself, really. What's the approach used to teach your daughter another language? Even if I'm able to speak it, I don't want to get my bad accent pronunciation. Don't worry too much about your accent and pronunciation. Often children will learn to speak better than we do. Languages. I mean, I'm trying to write down the sort of what to talk about in lingua familiar. Sistema una persona, una lingua. Citie mi parolas in. Okay. How would you plan learning? Where I describe how I'm learning Korean, how I decided to plan things. So if you check out speakingfluently.com, you'll see how I plan language learning and how I'm doing that with Korean right now. So yeah, oh dear, I can see it's lagging a lot for you, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that on YouTube. I don't know if I'll be able to fix that for you. I'll see if I can. Okay. Yeah, let me see. Okay, so I do have some other questions here as well. Basic vocabulary in a familiar language family. Learning what you need to learn is the important thing, and not getting too bogged down on lots of things that you don't need particularly. French is going to kill your throat. Any advice on mastering that sound? So the you can actually roll the R and speak the dialect in the south of France, something like bonjour. It sounds quite sweet, I think, when people say that. Bonjour, 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 bonjour. Sounds a bit more Quebecois, I guess. A little bit more. You can maybe go for a different accent if you want to avoid the sound in French. Yeah, I get that it's a bit difficult sometimes, and it feels a bit unnatural. A lot of sounds do feel unnatural when you first learn them, though, and it's amazing how quickly they get to be normal. ¿Consideras el noruego sencillo? Javier, sí. Sencillo desde el punto de vista que, por ejemplo, hablaba sueco bastante bien antes de aprender noruego. Y creo que en general sí que es un idioma bastante sencillo para aprender. El único problema con el noruego es hablar con la gente en noruego, porque ellos tienden a hablar muy bien inglés con extranjeros, así que ese es el problema que tenemos con idiomas como el noruego, holandés, sueco y tal cual. Así que eso es que la cosa más difícil. Your thoughts and opinions on how you would go to interpretation as a career? Yeah, there are interpreting schools, in fact. So there are two in Paris. There's one in Geneva I've heard of, and you can study at those, and yeah, study interpreting. So I'd have a look at interpreting schools and see what's on offer, what's available. But that's kind of where I think you want to get into serious interpreting. You want to do that. How did I start the Polyglot conference? Oh wow, thank you very much, Marianne. That's very Alan, that's very sweet. And lag or not, you're still awesome. That's very sweet. €10. Wow, I feel it's very kind of you. Thank you. When the shops open, I'll be able to go and buy myself a coffee again. Use link on your main language resource. I only focus on Portuguese, but I feel stuck. Especially my speaking is terrible. Yeah, it's so. Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me some money to go and buy a coffee. That's very sweet. I really appreciate that. And secondly, yeah, I know that thing with you you get used to listening or reading and things, and it can be a little bit daunting to sort of start talking and speaking the language. Using set phrases that you feel comfortable with, and then substituting out you need to use to say different things. And once you feel that you've got these patterns, sort of ropes, practice for sure. Which language are you studying, Marley? Just Portuguese. Was it Portuguese you said, wasn't it? Yeah, you're focusing on Portuguese. It will. One of the other things I would say with Portuguese, particularly, is focusing on changing out the verb forms. So, talking about what you do, what second person, third person, fourth person, things like in a very you get to practice the different forms, then talking about them in the past, talking about them in the present, talking about them in all different tenses. So absolutely go through doing that. Do you have any advice for those of us who have been the natural ability to transfer our reading knowledge? Yeah, I think this is what I was talking about just now, actually, probably when I was answering Marlon's question. So I hope that answers, that helps answer the question. Hi, 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. I got a question here. How did I start the Polyglot conference from Speedflex? So it started because we were a group of people online, and there was like a community on a forum. We definitely went, decided that we wanted to sort of to see if it would work. So we put out a call to see who was interested, and then yeah, forward and I put together, I organised a program, and Luca sort of came on stage with me as well. We welcomed everyone, and we had a great conference every weekend. And you can still register, and you can agree to meet with people at different times to practice your languages. So, and that's it. We don't charge you a ticket, or it can be, even if you can only afford $1, or there's an option actually for free tickets as well. But if you can afford $1, it's easier because it just means that it's an automatic process, that you get an email and it's all automated that way. Whereas if you wait for a free ticket, you have to wait for a time where you can actually go in and physically get in and send you an email, which takes longer. Your thoughts and opinion on how, okay, interpretation, I got that one. Okay. How did you get free Russian lessons? I didn't get free Russian lessons. I don't know if I mentioned that podcast. No, I didn't. I didn't get free Russian lessons. I've paid for my Russian lessons. Don't know. Greek is nice. It is very nice. I love Greek. How important is it for you to learn to write in the target language? Very important. How Yes, I've got this one. And I think I've done all of it. I think I've done it. I think I've got 3 more. Efficient way to learn foreign languages by reading books and languages. The link is good for reading, actually. Link, because you get to listen to it and you can click on words you don't know. So try link. I think I've answered all the questions I got in. Go me. Yay. And I did it before the hour. So let me just see if I missed any more here. And I took on your comments when I asked about these in the future. Some of you said that I should make shorter videos just on certain topics. And if you want, I can do that. What I try to do is be fair and ask people to me on through Instagram. Usually I put the option on my story at like a day before, and then I take those questions so that I always have questions to answer when I start the lives. Sometimes these are busier than others, so some will be busier than, answer questions live. So this time I think but yeah, that's yesterday about this. So 4 different things, the same word means 4 different things in 4 different languages. So it means feet in Spanish, it means magpies in French, dog in Polish, and it means pies in English. So yes. What's the difference between classical Arabic and modern standard Arabic? Classical Arabic, I don't know if you mean, am I saying Arabic to give you a very good answer to that? I wouldn't want to sort of guess on all of the intricacies of that. As far as I know, classical Arabic would be more like the Quranic Arabic, but I really don't know enough about classical Arabic. I really don't. Maybe in the future I might, and if you find out, you can let me know. Okay. But otherwise, I think we've got to the end of the of where we are with this today. Linguistic. Okay. Last thing I'd love to ask you: linguistics and studying languages has always been my passion, but due to fear of being jobless, I eventually chose medicine. Yeah. Do you think one should pursue their passion? Now, I definitely would not want you to give up on medicine, because I think it's a very worthy pursuit and definitely well worth it. Languages aren't going away anywhere, and you can always go to languages and go back to languages.